Hey, first period, what's up? How are you guys doing? This is Mac. I want to go over your slides for the week. I'm going to go over all the Google slides for the whole entire week, but you might end up wanting to re-watch it a little bit later, depending on what day you're doing your work. But let me go ahead and share my screen with you, and then you can see what we're doing. Y'all are doing well. All right, so this week's slides are on Google Classroom. And I give you a rough schedule of what you should be doing each day, but you're welcome to go at your own pace. But this way, if you're someone who needs like a little one assignment to do every day, you can do it that way. But the only work that's due is due on Friday, just like last week too. But there's no late work during distance learning or no late points off. So if you turn it in on Saturday, that's okay. If you need to turn in last week's work, that's okay. And then especially because this week we're starting the novel, this is a good week to make sure we're keeping up with our work. All right, so Mice and Men Chapter 1, get excited. Look sad I can't read this with you guys. All right, so again, here's the schedule for the week. So Monday, I'd recommend you go through the Google Slides that I've attached, especially the purple ones. It's a little hard to see on my screen, but this is purple, blue, like a pink, and then green. And they're matched by what assignment you can do each day. So today is the purple slides and watching the YouTube notes, which you're doing right now. Tomorrow's a good day to actually read and or listen to chapter 1. And I'll show you, I attached a PDF of the novel and I attached a YouTube video of an audiobook going through it. And there's tons of them. It's a very popular book. And then Wednesday, I give you just some notes on character, on our two main characters, Lenny and George. You just have to go through those. There's no classwork for those, and I'll show you. It's just to go through. And then on Thursday, you can actually do the chapter 1 questions, which are on the final slides. And that's actually, you can see here, attached to a Google Doc that's on Google Classroom. And you'll turn that in on Google Classroom on Friday. So again, you don't have to do these necessarily each day. Maybe it takes you less than the time you have one day. You could do both of these in a day, whatever floats your boat. But here's a recommendation. All right, so I'm going to go over the whole week, but again, you can pause and go back day by day, but I'm going to do the whole week at once, okay? So happy Monday, and it is Monday. Here's all your classwork, and then check Google Classroom for anything else you need. Again, if you didn't turn in last week's stuff, like the survey, it's really quick. It just asks you kind of like those big idea questions about Of Mice and Men. And then there's a very short background worksheet. I'm being pretty nice with points. And then the Of Mice and Men Chapter 1 classwork is due Friday, and that's for this week. All right, again, the daily Mac challenges. So every day I've been posting just like a fun challenge. There was like post a baby picture, post a pet peeve that you have, or like post a meme about how your week's going. And you can either do it on the Padlet that I post every day or on my Instagram. And some of you, there's been a couple of you participating every day. I love it. I'm giving you points. And these only help your grade. So if you don't do it, it doesn't take points off. It's not negative. And if you see an NA in Aries, that means that I didn't see you post anything for that week. But again, it's not hurting your grade. But for those of you who have posted at least once, I'm giving you points per week. And see if you can even post twice. I don't let you make up the challenges late. Once it's 10 o'clock, I close the Padlet up, and that's it. That's okay because it doesn't hurt your grade. You have to do it each day. And if you don't put your name in the post, you guys have been doing a pretty good job about that, then just know I can't give you points because I don't know who it is. And I'm really enjoying seeing your post so far. Thank you, those of you who are participating. I'm loving it. All right, so we're going into chapter 1 of Mice and Men. So Mice and Men is a pretty short novel. It's a little over 100 pages long, and there's only 6 chapters. It goes really fast. I usually read it in May anyway, so we're about the same time. So here's kind of a very brief overview of what's going on in chapter 1. And there are tons of summaries online, on YouTube. So if you're really, really stuck, I mean, you definitely should read it. It's a fantastic book. But if you need a little help before you start, then you can definitely watch a little summary or read a summary. But here's my summary. So we meet our main 2 characters, George and Lenny. And again, this book is a little strange because it takes place over like a weekend. Unlike the other books we've read, Anne Frank, which took years and years and years, like she was in the annex for 3 years, this one is only a couple of days. There's a lot of setting description. The author, Steinbeck, like the first page, the book is all describing the mountains of Salinas. So it can seem a little overwhelming at first. Just get through it. We'll get to Lenny and George. And it's really beautiful, though. It's a great description. It describes like the birds and the trees. You kind of, especially if you're not from California, if you're not from that area, it gives a really vivid description, really great imagery. And then we get the actual story that starts. So George and Lenny, we learn, are heading to work at a ranch outside of Soledad, where they want to earn some money. And they stop to camp for the night by this little area by the Salinas River before going to work the next day. And they talk about their dream, which is this thing that motivates them and keeps them going. And we learn a lot about who they both are as characters. Here's just a couple quick vocab words. A bindle, something George and Lenny carry. It's like what they roll up to carry their belongings, which might be like a little bit of food, clothes, their bedroll. They might carry it on a stick or something like you see here. And then in chapter 1, they're kind of camping by this brush. And that's just like a lot of thick bushes. So there's like a lot of cover. They're not out in the open. And it just kind of shows like what kind of vegetation is on the hills here. Here's the full text, which is the PDF. And then here is a link to the chapter on YouTube. I chose one that actually has the text that goes along with it, but there are other audiobooks that don't have that if you want to just listen. Okay, here's the work for Wednesday. There are, again, these are just notes. There's no classwork. So it's just kind of to help you think about George and Lenny as you read. So I'm going to go over it, and then you can review it as you need during the week. So what do we learn about these characters in chapter 1? It's the exposition, of the book. At the very beginning, we're just meeting these characters, and think about what do we do when we meet a new person, right? We tend to judge them by these factors right here. What do they look like? Their appearance. This could be like their age, their race, any other important physical features. That's not all we're going to judge them by, but again, like that might be our first impression. Speech. So this talks about how a person talks. It could be literally, do they have an accent? Do they use slang? We'll definitely see that George and Lenny say things like ain't a lot. They also use a lot of really inappropriate language. I'll warn you now. Just gonna have to get through it. Or do they even talk a lot? Are they more quiet? What types of things do they say? Are they an honest person? Do they lie? Do they make fun of people? You know, what do they say when they do speak? Also, action. So what does this character do? And what does this show about them? Are they kind to people? Do they work hard? What can we tell based on what we see? Beliefs and feelings. So what is important to this character? What drives them? How do they feel during the story? How do they react to things during the story? And then lastly, relationships. How do they interact or get along with other characters? Are they respected? Do they treat others well? Do they generally get along with people? So all these things, you're not necessarily going to answer all these questions every time in every chapter, but these are just things to think about. Just as when you meet someone else, you might think about these things before you determine what kind of person that they are. So we're going to do the same for George and Lenny. And then I just pulled a couple important quotes about each character. There's so many more. This book has so much rich language that you can use these to kind of start you off. So these are George, and this is the image of him from the movie, which I think is on YouTube, so we can watch it later. Yay! And this is played by Gary Sinise. So the first one describes his appearance. The first man was small and quick, dark of face, with restless eyes and sharp, strong features. Every part of him was defined. Small, strong hands, slender arms, a thin and bony nose. And this is on page 4, and I'll show you how the page numbers work on the PDF that I posted. But you'll see him here, so he's a little smaller and just like kind of strong, but small and thin. And here's him talking to his pal Lenny. Like, okay, I'll tell you again. I ain't got nothing to do. Might as well just spend all my time telling you things and you forget them, and I'll tell you again. First of all, we can kind of hear a little bit how they talk. Not perfect English, a lot of abbreviation. Can be a little hard to follow sometimes. And it seems like, tell you again, I ain't got nothing to do. I think he's being a little sarcastic here. Maybe he's a little annoyed with Lenny, having to tell things when he forgets. Maybe I'm starting to think Lenny has trouble remembering things. Starting to get some hints. Is he responsible for like taking care of Lenny? What are we going to find out? All right, here's some more quotes for George. Here's some of the language. He says, "You never had none, you crazy beat. I got both of them here. Think I'd let you carry your own work card?" Ooh, so in there we learned that in order to get their job on the ranch, they have to carry these little work cards that show where they've worked. So he's carrying Lenny's work card for him. He doesn't let Lenny. He's using words like crazy and other words. Interesting how he views Lenny and treats Lenny. What else does he say to Lenny? "Well, you ain't petting no mice while you walk with me. Remember where we're going now?" Ooh, so a lot of rules is giving Lenny. I'm curious about the mice. You're going to learn that when you get to Lenny. And here's our last quote with Lenny, and there's so many more in the chapter. "And what do I got? I got you. Can't keep a job and you lose me every job I get. Keep me shoving all over the country all the time. And that ain't the worst. You get in trouble. You do bad things and I got to get you out. You crazy son of a bee. Keep me in hot water all the time. Hot water just means trouble. So here we see him like, what is he yelling at Lenny? He's calling him like some really serious language, complaining that he keeps getting him in trouble. So I'm wondering, like, why are they still friends? What's going on? Is he nicer to Lenny later on? Lots of questions, but these quotes will at least start you off with George. Now we go to Lenny. Lenny's small. And Lenny, here he is, played by John Malkovich in the movie. Lenny is a huge man, shapeless of face, with large, pale eyes. Ooh, catching so many typos, I'll fix them. With wide, sloping shoulders. And he walked heavily, dragging his feet a little, the way a bear drags his paws. His arms did not swing at his sides, but hung loosely. So where George is kind of like small and thin, Lenny is a big guy. I cannot stress this enough. This is a super important thing to know about his appearance. He's incredibly big and incredibly strong. Yeah, just got to keep that in your mind. Physically the complete opposite of George. And here's something Lenny's doing in action. His huge companion dropped his blankets and flung himself down and drank from the surface of the green pool, drank with long gulps, snorting into the water like a horse. We have Lenny, when they get to this campground, he just like throws himself in the lake and he starts drinking the water. And George has to like yell at him to stop doing that because the water might not be healthy. We also see here they compare Lenny to a bear, compared to a horse. They compare him to an animal a lot, which tells us something about him. It's not always compared to humans, but animals, a little less. Here's a couple more for Lenny. He's talking to George. Where are we going? I forgot, Lenny said softly. I tried not to forget. Honest to God, I did, George. Tried and tried, but it didn't do no good. I remember about the rabbits, George. So based on what I've already read about George, and now with what Lenny's saying, it seems like he's definitely having trouble with memory. He remembers rabbits, which will be important later, but it doesn't seem like he does a great job of remembering what they're doing every day. All right, here's the next quote here. Ain't a thing in my pocket. Ain't got nothing, George, on it. It's only a mouse, George. Just a dead mouse, George. I didn't kill it, on it. I found it. I found it dead. I could pet it with my thumb as we walked along. Lenny has a real strange thing that he enjoys, which is just petting soft things. He loves soft animals, rabbits, mice. And he's a very gentle giant. It may seem weird when you're learning about Lenny, but he's extremely sweet. He just wants to pet them. But then he ends up, as you learn in chapter 1, sometimes killing the mice. There's one where he talks about he pinches the mouse's little head and it dies. And George gets really mad at him, like, you can't carry these dead mice in your pocket. And here's Lenny's response, that he just wants to pet it. So a little strange. We're maybe learning about how mentally sharp Lenny is. Struggles with memory, carrying around dead mice to pet. It's a little different than we might expect. All right, here's our last quote. This is after George yells at Lenny because Lenny wants ketchup for the beans they're eating, and George like blows up at him, which is one of the quotes in the last section for George. I was only fooling George. I don't want no ketchup. I wouldn't eat no ketchup if it was right here beside me. George, you want I should go away and leave you alone? Well, I could go off in those hills there. Someplace I'd find a cave. I have this quote because even though Lenny knows George is mad at him, he kind of like guilts him. He's like, I'll just leave. We learned that Lenny and George have known each other for a really long time, since like high school, childhood. George talks about Lenny's Aunt Clara and how George promised to take care of him. So they really do care about each other. And even though George gets super mad at Lenny for obvious reasons, I think Lenny knows that George cares about him and George does care about Lenny. But that's kind of this issue here, is that they do care about each other. They are friends, but George does kind of have to like take care of Lenny a little bit. All right, so there are just some quotes to get you going, but there's many, many more in the chapter. The last thing I want to talk about is they talk about their dream. We talked about the American dream last week, which for people used to be kind of like having a secure job and a house and safety and children. Now it's kind of morphed into just being rich and famous. But for some people, it's still just having that security, a home, a family. So what is Lenny and George's dream? And here's the quote, and I kind of smushed them together, that starts us off. And this is George talking to Lenny, and Lenny begs George to tell him about the dream. He says, tell me, George, tell me about the rabbits. Tell me about the rabbits. Every time he says, tell me about the rabbits, he's asking to hear about their dream, because this is what motivates them, and this is what calms Lenny down. So guys like us that work on ranches are the loneliest guys in the world. They got no family. They don't belong no place. They come to a ranch and work up a steak, and they go into town and blow their steak. And the first thing you know, they're pounding their tail on some other ranch. They ain't got nothing to look ahead to. With us, it ain't like that. We got a future. We got somebody to talk to that gives a damn about us. Because I got you to look after me, and you got me to look after you, and that's why. And then later he says, sometimes we're gonna get the jack together, and we're gonna have a little house, a couple acres, and a cow and some pigs, and live off the fat of the land, and have rabbits. Lenny, he loves his rabbits. So we see this gives an overview of their dream, and this on 16, page 16 goes on a little bit, and you can keep reading what else they imagine besides the cows and the pigs and the rabbits that they might have. All right, so after you go through chapter 1, you do have some response questions on the Google Doc on Google Classroom. So here are your just basic reading questions. Did you catch what's going on? Here's slide number 2, and I'm actually going to go over these. There's Millie on the document itself. First of all, here's the actual text. If you kind of hover near the top of the screen, you can see it says 3 here. These are the page numbers that I use because they are kind of slightly longer chapters since there aren't that many. But this is a pretty good copy of the text. Again, it's not censored. There is some language in here, but I've read this book every year with my 8th graders, so I think you guys can survive. So there's that. And then here's the chapter 1 assignment. Here's the link to the Google Slides you were just on if you need to reference them. Here's the text that we just looked at, and here's the audiobook on YouTube. So part 1, George yells at Lenny about what happened in Weed, the town in Northern California where they were working before going to Soledad. And Weed is actually a real place right on the California-Oregon border. In your own words, what happened there. And they talk about it a little bit on page 8. And he talks about it a little bit on page 13 when George is like yelling at Lenny. We may not get all of the details. We'll come back to this later, but get a little bit. Question number 2, what does George make Lenny promise to remember at the end of chapter 1? Right before they go to bed, George tells Lenny to look around and remember something. What is it? And this is foreshadowing or a hint for what's going to maybe happen later. All right, question 3, 2 parts. A, in your own words, what is George and Lenny's dream? Tell me in your own words in less than 50 words. So not specifically every single thing they want, but just kind of summarize it. And then what do you think it means to live off the fat of the land? And the real phrase is to live off the fat of the land, but based on what kinds of things they want to do, what could this mean? And then part 2 is character analysis. So why does George always get frustrated with Lenny? There's a couple of reasons. Just put it in your own words. I want you to describe Lenny. I gave you some quotes in the slides showing like what he physically looks like and kind of some things he struggles with, but there's a lot more going on. So what inferences can you make so far? Give me 4 to 6 complete sentences. You don't have to have quotes, but they should be specific details. And here's some questions. You don't have to answer these specifically, but they can help you. Like, why does he keep the mouse in his pocket? What does he struggle with? Why does George keep Lenny around besides maybe their childhood? What other reasons? And then why do you think George and Lenny are friends, even though they are complete opposites? Be as specific as possible. Answer in at least 4 complete sentences. And you could actually even look at this question a little bit for that one too. And that's it. You'll answer those, you'll type them in complete sentences, turn them in, and that is your classwork. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm going to add one more question. Question number 7. Can you do it right here with me? Watch me type it. And it is, what do you think so far in the book? What questions do you have for chapter 1? Anything, what predictions do you make for chapter 2? So at least make one prediction. And then if you have any questions, let me know. And again, it's a very common book, so you can always look online for sources and things like that. All right, team, I hope you have a really good week. I miss your faces. Take care. You can always email me. Come to office hours if you need it. I hope to see you. Take care. Bye.